they moan and they fuss and they say we want, we bet, and they abuse and they cuss and they say this is a threat. Yes, they damn and they blast and they say we hope it ain't true. They won't dare to cancel. We jump up 1972. Mama, when they...
Hi, Sir Martin. This is Mark Mingo, candidate of the UP Party. I would like to invite you to the UP Congress at Ali's Convention Center in Madam Estate. Here you'll get a chance to meet me in person, to discuss the issues, to discuss the economy, and also to discuss the topics which are actually affecting your life, and to further enlighten you and explain you about the vision and where I, as Mark Mingo, will take the mountain.
Some of them even say it's the guns on Montcoco, so they won't let me play, and they blaming polio. Who they think they could fool? All we know they better do fast. Polio or no polio, man we won, we must. Mama, when they hear, they go get the Carnival. Oh, all masqueraders on here. Well, they didn't care if it was official, but they start turning peace on the street, and they start to jump around, and they start to tumble down, and they fall down on the ground. If you see how they...
Welcome to the Late Night Show. Hope everything is okay. Hope everything is all right. I'm your host, Andrew Drake, and of course, we continue to be on the road, giving you the latest, what's happening on the lovely island of St. Martin. We begin with, of course, the Council of Ministers press briefing. One of my favorite days, Wednesdays, is when the ministers come and they try to answer the questions of the media. Of course, we skip the opening segment because that's where they come and just give their billboard announcements. That's what I just call it. And then afterwards, the question and answers is really where we just get to the meat of the matter. Highlights of today is listen out for the Prime Minister talking about the elections, and also the Prime Minister trying to make an excuse for GEBE, and also some other stuff. So let's go straight into the question and answer session of the Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday. Let's go into it.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session, and Bibi Hot Shah of SMA News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Relika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Prime Minister. My first question, can you give us an update on the cleanup of the civil registry? Has a date yet been set for election? And can you tell us how many registered persons we have?
Okay, yes, so we're still in the finalization of the process. As I'd mentioned before, I did promise that in August I'll be making the announcement, but as I just got back in on Monday, the process isn't complete as yet, so we do have to finalize consultations with our stakeholders, such as the main voting bureau, etc. And once we've received the feedback, then I'll be making those announcements. And then the other questions that you asked related to the number of, did you ask eligible voters or registered persons in general, which is then based on how many seats. Well, as I mentioned before, I didn't get an indication that it went any higher than the 15th, as I mentioned last month, and with the expectation of writing in and writing out that we have over the years on a regular basis. We don't expect that to change drastically. So I'll be able to update that once I've had the necessary feedback from our stakeholders, but within the next couple of weeks, we should be able to make that announcement.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Bibi. I would now like to invite Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Very good morning to you, Prime Minister, colleagues. I have a follow-up to that same question on the whole issue of election. Prime Minister, why is it taking so long to get a date for election? You did mention that you're still in the process, and you mentioned some things related to that. But why is it taking so long? And can you also shed some light? There are persistent reports that have been circulating of late that elections would not be held in January and actually sometime prior to it. It's very persistent. Can you
Probably
say
wishful
whether,
thinking.
is there any truth to those reports? And can you update us on the whole issue of the refinancing of the COVID loans and the ENYA issue? Thank you so much.
Yes, why is it taking so long? There have been many changes within the organization, and for some, it is it's not the same people who have done it before. So we want to ensure to take all the necessary precautions. So we've consulted with the Legal Affairs Department, Civil Registry Department. The main voting bureau is also a new group of persons for the most part. And so we're ensuring that all I's are dotted and T's are crossed before making any announcements. So we've been in consultation. Again, it's been over the break. So during July and August, people are in, people are out. And so sometimes you have to wait on a response. So I am awaiting currently a response from my stakeholders, and we will be making the announcement. Contrary to what some out there, as I mentioned while you were speaking, I apologize for interrupting. I thought you were done. For some political parties out there, it may be wishful thinking. We've had the discussion. I was very clear and emphatic more than a month ago that elections are scheduled for January. The date had to be ascertained, looking at the laws, when they have to sit. We know for sure the new parliament has to sit by February 12th. I think I mentioned that before. And so then you do the calculation moving backwards, 80 to 90 days. So there's a 10-day space within which postulation will take place and the elections will take place. Also taking into consideration the time between the date of the election and the date Parliament has to sit. So there's, a scaling, a time that you have to play with there. So we don't want to announce something, then have to retract it, change it, etc. I want to be sure that we do it correctly. It's also my first time. We did do the elections back in 2019-20, but it was with persons who have experience in that. We're now dealing with a lot of new persons. We do have also, and I've said this before, some departments that are missing persons, so we have to ensure things may take a little bit longer, but they're being done, and it will be done in time for the elections of 2024. And your other question was about the refinancing of the COVID loans. I haven't had any update. The committees are still working. We were granted some extra time. Of course, the second chamber was on recess as well as some of the persons that we deal with in the Netherlands. So until they come back online, which I believe is next week, we will restart discussions on that level. But internally, at St. Martin, we're doing our due diligence, and I think we're close to finish.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen Cerulean of PJDT Radio, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister, during the last press conference, you made mention that you were looking forward to at least having the date for the Kingdom Conference to be changed. Can you provide an update as it pertains to that subject matter?
Yes, St. Martin is represented in that committee as well. So that committee's discussion have continued through the break, and they're continuing to deliberate on dates. So, of course, we're dealing with a 4-part kingdom, and so dates that are good for one part may not be good for another part. So they are still in discussions as to the feasibility of the dates that we were discussing lately, which were in November. So I don't know what the final decision will be because we are still awaiting responses to the feasibility from the other stakeholders at this point. So the discussion is still ongoing. No final date has been established as yet.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Prime Minister, the last time you attended press briefing, we asked you about NVGEBE and the IT abnormality. You said at that time that you were intending to have a meeting. Can you give us an update about that? And Prime Minister, can you also tell us about the recruitment of the management team of NBGEVE? Based on the Articles of Incorporation, Articles 7 and 8, there is a violation. Article 7 says after 4 months, a management team has to be appointed, and it is the duty of the supervisory board to appoint the temporary manager. If I remember correctly, when the current TM was appointed, there was only 2 members of the board, and that appointment was made by the Council of Ministers. I'd like to know if the recruitment starts for the new team and the current status of NVGEBE.
Thank you for those questions and your concerns as well. Government of St. Martin, we did have an update from NVGB after the, let's say, the attempt that was made. We were, let's say, reassured that all of the necessary precautionary measures that had been put in place to avoid being negatively impacted by an ICT hack actually worked. The necessary triggers went up, and therefore no actual data was lost. The time, of course, was lost, but it was necessary time to ensure that there was no negative impact, and they were able to resume work. So that was confirmed, that the attempt was thwarted. There is still an investigation to be finalized, which is ongoing, and we are satisfied with the steps that have been taken by the interim management at NVGEBE with the team that he has there, Mr. Washington and his team. We also requested information as to the way forward, how are we doing, and the process is being followed for the recruitment to start for the management or a permanent management team. But in the interim, the temporary manager is authorized to carry out the necessary with the mandate of the current supervisory board as well as shareholder. So as such, the process is ongoing, and we will await the updates from the supervisory board in that regard. But we are in constant contact, and we will be updated as things progress.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, on the same issue of GB, currently bills are not being issued consistently at all. Even prior to the recent incident that GB has. Is there something going on there? Can you enlighten us as to why? Why is it that 1 year, more than a year after the hack, bills cannot be issued? What exactly is going on at GB to cause that?
So in the update we received, we were made to understand that, let's say, data provided last year this time, so as to how far they were in recovering the whole invoicing and billing system were inaccurate. After further discussion, it was much further behind than that, and they're currently about 75% recovered. So there are 25% of say clients, could be businesses or citizens, that are still not receiving bills, but they are diligently working on that. It became challenging because, let's say, garbage in, garbage out. So when you make mistakes in inputting information, or you don't use the same format, if you have several people inputting information into a system and it's not the same format, then you end up with challenges. So a lot had to be redone, which is being done, and it's being done meticulously. And for those that they still have challenges, then they have to go completely back. They may have to call you in to bring certain things to collaborate or corroborate what information is in there. But we have asked NVGEB to also be a little more proactive in ensuring to inform the citizens as to where they are, what's being done, and I look forward to them doing so as well.
Thank you. If I may ask a follow-up, please. When is this whole issue of the inputting of the additional 25% expected to be resolved? And a lot of people are not paying because they are not receiving bills. So how is this whole thing affecting GEB financially?
So they have seen an uptick in, again, being 75% now, whereas last year this time, so I can't say where it was, but it was a lot less. Maybe it was opposite. Maybe they were at 20-something% at the time. So they hope to have it resolved within short. I can't give you a date because they have not given me a date. It is a slow and meticulous process, and when people receive a bill, then they still come in, maybe challenge, etc. 1 or 2 people have mentioned to me that they are receiving bills, but an earlier challenge still is a challenge. You understand? In terms of reconciling what may have happened at a particular time. And I believe the time of the hack at that time really did wreak havoc on, information from the year previous, 2021 to 2022. So there was a good backlog of a year that had to be re-inputted, so to speak. So it's quite a lot of information for all of the vendors. And so I would like to encourage, as I have each time, at the end of the day, encourage persons to at least pay what you used to pay before, because you have not. And if you haven't been paying, then you will definitely end up on a list to be cut, because you are being provided with electricity consistently, despite all the challenges that GEBE has faced. And I know for some that's small consolation, but in some countries of the world, you consume, you pay a standard amount every month, and at the end of the year, you are reconciled. So it's like, how you call that? Similar to when you do with your phone, like a top-up type of a system. So I think we're moving towards more digitalization. We're moving towards, and of course, with digitalization, you run the risk of ICT challenges. But I'm asking the people of St. Martin to bear with our one and only electricity company. They are getting things on par. At the end of the day, it's a human resources that they have to use, the hard workers at NVGEBE, as well as some others that they have brought in to assist in getting this process finalized. And they are seeing great improvement. So I look forward to it happening as you and the rest of the community sooner rather than later. And I implore NVGB again to continue to update the population to get these questions answered on a regular basis. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Prime Minister, mid of August is quickly approaching. That means the peak of the hurricane season. As chairperson of the EOC, and based on your assessment of the state of readiness, would you therefore say that St. Martin is quite ready in the event of a hurricane?
Well, we continue, Stephen. Thank you for that question. Yes, the hurricane season lasts a long time. And we started earlier than June 1st, which is the official start. From in May, we were already experiencing challenges. And now, of course, everyone can tell how hot it is. We are experiencing quite, I guess we forget every year how hot it gets, but it is hot. So I'm saying, first of all, take care of yourself. Ensure that you're hydrating properly. Government's website has been updated. The hurricane is at the front. The hurricane preparedness is at the front. You can click on that link, and do ensure that as individuals, as families, businesses, institutions like schools, churches, and the like, that you are well prepared, that you have a disaster plan, you have a hurricane plan, an evacuation plan if necessary, and that you have the needed medication for the vulnerable, as well as whatever you may need. As Government of St. Martin, our ESF coordinators are as prepared as we usually are. We continue to grow. They've received some training. We're doing community training as well. I did update a couple of weeks ago. The press statement was out there, but I'm super proud of the Ministry of ESF 6 and 7 community development have really gone out in the community, and we have trained a big cohort of trainers who can now train more people. And that is the way we continue to grow. I think St. Martin will one day definitely become the hub for disaster preparedness. And we're doing everything we can to ensure that we are fully prepared for any eventuality, but we will continue to pray that St. Martin and the rest of the region is spared, because we are still in recovery.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Stephen. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thanks, Zuleika. Prime Minister, can you tell us when is the Remuneration Law Article 8, when will the amendment be made so that civil servants can become compensated accordingly? For example, the current management team of facilities. And can you also tell me if the Council of Ministers took a decision to levy a fee towards passengers at the harbor for economic development, and can you give an update on that?
I'll answer the first part, and then I'll ask you to repeat the second one, if you don't mind. The second question. For the majority of people, mostly the civil servants will know what I'm talking about, but the bezoldigingsregeling ambtenaren, known as the BRA, is the law that regulates hiring, firing, etc., the remuneration of our civil service. We've been having some serious challenges ever since I came in, requesting that we need to do something differently. A lot of civil servants felt disadvantaged, especially when working already in a function and applying for another. The policy was being applied in a manner that was a bit punitive. And no matter how we tried to resolve it, it did not get resolved. So we have been working over the past years, actually, back and forth in discussion with all of the legal heads. And when you have 5 legal persons in a room, you get 5 different discussions, to tell you the truth, points of view. And I respect them because that's their thing. But finally, I can say that after a lot of discussions, again, on this whole legal issue and how we can do it, a minor adjustment can be done. And I'm in the process of doing that together, presenting an advice to the council next week, which will then amend the manner in which that is done. That is just for Article 8. So we're not going to be applying the Article 8 for persons who are civil servants already applying for functions. They should not be disadvantaged. It should be a seamless. They are just someone applying for a job. So that shouldn't, hurt their position or have them receive a lower pay than someone else who would be coming from outside. There are several other discussions, though, that we're having with the CCSU because this entire law has been under discussion for years. So there were several points that we'd already agreed upon between government and the CCSU. So a proposal has been submitted to them, I believe, early this week or last week, confirming what we already agreed upon and some other proposals that had been made in our last meeting. We didn't come out and say anything publicly because we agreed with the unions that we would do that after the consultation. So I don't want to go into any detail, but Government of St. Martin, we have put together a negotiation team to sit with the union's negotiation team to come to an agreement where we can move forward. Also addressing, because I must say our employee survey did reveal what we suspected were some of the challenges that our civil service experience. And so we're trying to address some of those. Of course, we have to be realistic because of budget constraints. And I must say that the union is also being very understanding in that regard. So we're putting our heads together also to come up with ways between the unions and government on generating new revenue so that we're able to afford the needed increases that we would all like to see. Because as government is not a fight for us. We would also like to remunerate with pay, salaries, according to the market, according to the cost of living. So cost of living is necessary, the indexation, all of those discussions are the discussions, the topics that we want to also address. And we are in good discussions with the unions to do so in a manner that is manageable financially while we seek other sources of income to be able to afford the needed changes so that we can attract quality workers as well to execute the work as a growing nation, because the turnover has been really too great. And so we must do better to make our working conditions more acceptable, more beneficial. So in the past, where people would take a government job for security, persons are leaving even though it's a secure job. You know, we were definitely one of the employers that continued to pay during the pandemic. We didn't cut any salaries per se. Some benefits, yes, but not the salaries. And so you can say you have a level of security with a government job, but that is not our goal, not just to provide security, but to provide a working environment where our employees are happy, are productive, and therefore can give the great service that we need to give to the people of St. Martin. So we're a work in progress, but we're taking the necessary steps.
My second question, has the Council of Ministers taken a decision to issue a levy on passengers arriving at the harbor for economic development? If so, can you give us an update on that?
I really wouldn't be able to give you an answer on that. So I will pass that to our Ministry of TEAT, I believe. But I do know that we had taken a decision some time ago to establish a working group to look at all manners of, archaic fees that we have in place to be able to collect, charge for services that are being done, looking at things that we do for free even, as a service that can be charged so that we can, as I said before, become more financially sustainable. Simple things like within the Ministry of General Affairs. So each ministry has to provide persons to provide information, look at what we're doing in terms of fees, etc. And so it might be incremental, small areas, not going to touch every single person, but it is also only fair because everyone expects us to give out the service. To be able to give the service, we need to have the fees. So for instance, inspections, the fire department inspections are done free of charge at this point. So from General Affairs perspective, that's one of the areas that we're looking at, charging for the inspections that the fire department does for businesses and other institutions, etc., and trainings that they would give as well to the persons in fire safety, etc. So that's just basically one little aspect in General Affairs, but all ministries are looking into the services that we render to see what can be done to be able to generate the needed funds so we can take care of the people of St. Martin.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Bibi. Judy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Prime Minister, the chairperson of Parliament is currently out after undergoing a major surgery, and Parliament resumes as of Monday, which means that at the moment, while that MP is recovering abroad, there is no majority for the coalition. What are your concerns on this in terms of if government has a law to pass and there are quite a few meetings that are backlogged? What are your concerns over the fact that there is no majority and there are laws and other things to be passed? Also, you had mentioned last week that a decision has been made during the final stages, rather, of the appointment of an acting governor. Can you say when this is expected to be finalized, and is it a male or female candidate? And if you can release the name, I would be very grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. The majority in Parliament that supports a government, of course, is needed when you have laws, etc. You want to maintain that that challenge. I mean, we did have the situation also recently where MP Marlon was out for a while as well. I believe what I've seen in terms of our growth in St. Martin is the maturity level within the members of Parliament and what is good for the country. And I must say I've had that discussion with several of them that they continue to do what is best for the country. I do not think, especially going into an election year, that you can, especially if you're going to run again, condone the behavior that you're going to stay out and not give quorum just because, oh, well, where's your majority? Show me your majority story. This is a game that sometimes is played, but the game will be played in full view of the public and with the necessary consequences, I hope. We are in the last few months of this governing term, and so I ask the members of Parliament to, we all want to achieve, whether it's laws, legislation, etc., and if we do not then get the needed quorum to pass the legislation, then we will deal with that. But I expect that the members of Parliament will act in the best interest of the people of St. Martin.
Okay. And I also asked about the...
And I also wish MP Bijlani, of course, much strength in his recovery. We will know when he returns how soon he's actually able to work. He is aiming to be back here by the end of the month. And so I look forward to hearing from him and wish him well with his recovery. But of course, as I said in the opening statements, we have to ensure to take care of ourselves before we can give back. So I would want him to make sure he's well recovered. And you had another question?
Yes, the acting governor.
Oh, yes. The process is that I have to submit the names to the state secretary, etc., or resubmit the name with the new names. And I do not want to divulge anything until it's final, just like I did the last time. I did not divulge anything in my previous processes, and I respect the integrity of this process. Once it's finalized and I have an approval to move forward, then I will make the announcement.
Can we expect a first female governor?
When I am finalized with the process, I will inform accordingly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Judy. Stephen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Prime Minister, you said names. How many names? And
Well,
let
the
me.
process requires us to submit 2 names, so that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Can you provide an update on the Slavery Atonement and Reparations Committee's work, Prime Minister?
I must say that I haven't been able to read the report yet. It did come in during my absence last week, and it's high on my list of priorities, but I'm already Wednesday and haven't been able to read it. So we're having a meeting with the committee next week. So I do have to prepare for that meeting, and then after we've met with the committee, then I'll be able to give a better update. But it remains, I mean, a lot of people are interested, and that is great, that as a community, we are interested in what is coming after the comma. And at St. Martin, and remember, it was nowhere on our horizon. This morning, I took a little tour in our archives. We talk a lot about our archives and what we have and what we don't have. We don't have a national building for it. We don't have a national museum, and those are still our goals. But there's a lot within our archives. I must thank the hardworking civil service in DIV. They will have a greater focus on archiving moving forward. They are digitalizing the archives in a process that has just is about to start or just started. But it will be a long process, and we have a lot of documents, pictures, etc., from government that is available there, as well as within civil registry. And we are on a trajectory to really digitalize as much as possible so that we can save it forever. But it's important that we're able to share that information, not just have it. So what comes after the comma is of tantamount importance for the people of St. Martin in recognizing our true history, in learning as much as possible about it, to be able to share it. The discussion is coming up. If there are artifacts in the Netherlands, where will they be stored? What will happen with things that are relevant to St. Martin's history that's not in St. Martin? So we must be able to determine, we want to be able to have national archives, a national museum where we can see, learn about our history. That's a goal. But there is a lot more that it touches besides heritage and besides culture. Our education systems, our judicial systems, all of that, our economic development and our development as a country has been impacted by our slavery past. And by facing that history head on, by facing the consequences thereof, and what is owed to this country in terms of development, in terms of to the families, in terms of across the board, is going to be a question or discussion that doesn't end with one report, doesn't end with one discussion, and what comes after the comma will take a long, long time. So I'm very interested to see what the preliminary report of this AXAR committee is, what steps they're taking to formalize the association so that they can, on their own, request, even though government established them, they can then establish their own foundation or association through which they can then access funding to be able to do more research, to be able to assist St. Martin on the way forward. So I'm as excited as you, if not more, to find out where we're going with this, because it is an opportunity for St. Martin, with the apologies that have been rendered, to get what is due to this part of the world.
All right. Now, of course, you can imagine. Funny thing about it is that the elections is something that you know that was coming. The civil registry had to take place, the cleaning of the civil registry. It's still taking place with less than 6 months to go until the elections. And now you're saying we're hearing before February 12th? Like, what the hell is going on? You're just moving the goalposts as we go along? Now, I just don't like the fact that she's interrupted the reporter from the Daily Herald, Judy Fitzpatrick, when she was asking the question, and she just started to talk in between and say wishful thinking by the parties, wishful thinking by political parties. It's like almost as if she wants to keep the democratic process of St. Martin hostage. I don't understand. I just don't understand. I don't get it. But either way, we're going to do what we have to do. Welcome to the Late Night Show. we have a good one for you. Let's begin.
Hi, Mom. How are you?
Hi, darling. I'm fine. Just calling to say hi.
Oh, okay. We got over here.
Girl, I hear watching this movie and it.
But, Mom, you finished all your minutes yet?
No, girl. Talem has new postpaid plans and automatically upgraded my postpaid package.
Is that so?
Guess what? I am getting more minutes and almost double the amount of data for the same price.
I guess I'm making a switch now.
Let me call you back, Mom.
Hey, Tash, you hear about Telem new postpaid plans?
Take a chip, take a chip, take a chip, take a chip now. Shake it. Young DJ plays, run and tell them I say we are the sound them selectors play. Every day, making you sway. And when the girl them tell it, and shadow dingole, DJ plays what to say. We are the sound of soca. Big bad soca.
At SXM, we're taking travel and tourism to new heights. Here we boast spacious check-in areas, 10 passport control points, comfortable departure lounges, and an exciting new airport mall. Finally, there's an airport in the Caribbean that takes your travel plans as seriously as you do. Princess Juliana International Airport. The experience will move you.
Okay, so I guess we can begin with the election of the new president last year.
Yeah.
Mr. Edward Rajuki.
I'll even lend you this.
Yes.
If that's what helps.
And of course, for the new election, you know, they went back to basic, like you mentioned in the introduction, that they wanted to get people to fall back in love with the cultural aspect of Carnival. And Mr. Rajuki said that, you know, certain things would have gone back to the way it was.
To the good old days.
To the good old days, so that people can appreciate the festival a bit more. Fast forward to 2023, the opening was sparked by controversy due to the justice workers also having some issues.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So you can say that it was somewhat of a slow and sour start for the new president of the SCDF, who just started his tenure as president. And you can imagine the opening jump up. You know, they had issues. The Causeway jump up went fine. There was no problem with the Causeway jump up. Yeah, that was way before the opening jump up. But if we had to start in April, the opening jump up was set to start in Milton Peters College. It was supposed to start for 7 p.m. and it ended up starting at 9:30 p.m. Because the justice workers were having an emergency meeting at the Butte Hotel. So that was the first bad start. But it was still a happy ending because you can hear the cheers. I can still hear the cheers of when police sirens and finally showed up at a jump up to start. Those poor revelers, they are screaming and clapping and saying, "Yay!" They came and they conquered. I guess that was the happy ending. The jump up itself, a lot of youngsters, Valerie. My. That was sad to
the
see.
Prime Minister was
and the
at
Prime
Monaco,
Minister,
yeah.
right the day after, I believe, made mention that, hey, listen, anybody under 15 should not be in the jump up unsupervised. And a lot of parents, they took it. Some took action and didn't send their kids for the rest of the road events, but the others, you still saw a bunch of youngsters in the road events. So fast forward to the festival village. The first thing that we've noticed was the prices.
You mentioned that.
The food prices.
The food prices went through the roof.
And it's a 50-50 because you're trying to create a variety in the village. And it's always good to have variety. So you go to different places, you go to different spots, and you don't want a restaurant type of atmosphere. You want, to just get something
kind of
unique.
a backyard kind of thing?
Yeah, because it's, this is where the small man gets a chance to make some extra money. But due to the high prices that's playing in the island, the food prices and
what were some of the reasons for it? Was because everything has gone up? Why they were so expensive?
Yeah, that's what they said. I mean,
was it but gourmet food? You know what I mean?
No,
regular chicken leg.
No, we're talking about chicken. No, we're talking about chicken leg and Johnny cake.
So it wasn't no lobster. It was.
Well, they had lobster. They have your oxtail. You have your chicken, your fish, but everything is so expensive. So that you can imagine that
a family of four.
A family of four, a family of even a couple. You go individually. You go to the village. At least have more than $50 because you won't be able to just enjoy yourself because a mixed drink, for example, is already $10 for the special drink. $10. Yeah, $10, $12. You have big jumbos for $12, $13. Small one, $9. Chicken leg and Johnny cake and satays, $3 each. Before you know it, it's $12 for just about 3 to 4 things. Johnny cake, $2 for one. $2 for one Johnny cake. Sometimes you had special Johnny cakes for $3.
Like the pumpkin Johnny cakes.
Yeah. And then you had your chicken. Your chicken was also expensive. So it wasn't affordable. It wasn't affordable. But this is why I said during one of my late nights that Carnival is not for the weak, and I meant listen, you need to save, you need to prepare because you're going to spend an X amount of money on a daily basis because you want to try everything. You had an oxtail pizza.
I was just going to bring that up. Yes.
You had an oxtail Johnny cake somewhere.
Did you try it?
Yes, I did.
Was it good?
It was interesting.
Okay, I like that one. Talk to me.
It was a quiet taste.
Okay. Are you an oxtail lover?
I am an oxtail lover, but I don't know if it's supposed to be on pizza.
If it was a quiet taste, it was okay. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was but I saw a lot of people flock to the booths.
Okay.
And
what about these standalone restaurants? I heard they had, two booths took up 2 or 3 of them. It's like, why is that still being allowed? Did you ask?
No, because the SCDF is the one in charge of the way that the booth holders are set up. and what type of booth holders they have. So they have a list, they have a long waiting list of people that want to come into the village. So they pick certain amount or a certain group that they pick for.
If you have a standalone restaurant, you don't need to be in the village.
I agree, and that is somewhat of an issue that needs to be addressed, because you have many restaurants that say, okay, listen, we're closing for at our main location, but catch us in the village.
Yeah, it's like what about the traditional local St. Martino who has always provided the goat water and the
iguana soup
food.
or the alligator satays.
Yeah.
I mean, even that I miss this year. They don't have that. They didn't have that this year. So
the iguana or alligator?
Both of them.
You can keep all of them. What about the booths on the side? I saw more this year than I've ever saw before, which was nice.
Yes.
On the Walton Elizabeth Road.
Yes.
And they were reduced to that because they couldn't get in the
Valerie,
village.
let me give you the term. They call them
Lolos?
the strip.
Oh, the strip. Okay.
That's what we call it.
Okay.
The strip, the
Thank you for
Carnival
that.
strip.
Okay.
So that's all the booths, and I love how it's increasing over the years.
Yeah.
Of course, the police are a bit upset with them because
Right.
they kind of overdo it with the times that they had to open and close.
It's Carnival. Hello.
Yes, but you see, you have a permit. The permit says you need to open at, for example, 6 p.m. And you have to close by 12.
So what about the daytime? Maybe one. Remember,
Yeah, so-
you grew up here, Andrew, so you know that once upon a time, the old village, we could drive in, pick up our food, and
Drive out. Yeah. But because it's the strip, I guess they don't want it to be a direct competition with the village, because you have to think on the Carnival village and you have to think on the strip with the different booths that they have there. So they don't want to create a situation whereby it's
not
a
getting
competition.
anything, right?
But they are competing because of the prices. People don't want to pay $50, $60, $70 to go in the village to go spend $60, $70 for food and drinks when they could just pay $50, $60 for free by just parking up on the side of the road and going by the booth on the strip.
were the prices on the strip more expensive, or were they
About the
reasonable?
same.
About the same?
About the same.
Oh.
I tell you already, Valerie. I find the prices for the booth holders and the strip and the festival village, they competed with Maho and Simpson Bay. And when they told me that I was over exaggerating, I told them how much for a drink, a mixed drink by character, by example. You could get a mixed drink between $9 or $8, sometimes $8. Depends on what you take. If it's a premium drink, it's a little bit more. But in the village, everything was overpriced. And yes, it's expensive, but nobody had, they didn't make it affordable. And they could have done more. And I know that I might get some flack for it, because I know there's a lot of people that make their money during the Carnival season, but I don't care. It's about the people, and this is a time where they're supposed to get a little bit of relief, a little bit of distress, so they're gonna live a bit recklessly, and make it economic. Don't overdo it, And people were paying ridiculous amount of money for things that they normally wouldn't price like that,
Right. Attendance in the village. Was it full most of the time? Will you say that the crowd
the
came
local
out,
shows lost a lot, especially the STDF shows. They had some shows that they put together that they had to end up putting for free for people to come in. Because of the sometimes lack of participation of the performers or competitors. And it was also noticeable that we didn't have a Queen show this year.
That's right. Listen, I'll tell you, I did not see anything of Carnival.
Yeah, you see?
I didn't see anything. And then I'm glad I did.
Did anything entice you for the Carnival?
No.
You see, that's the thing.
Because number one, what happened? We as press, we didn't get passes.
And that also played a big role, and it's a good thing you bring it up, because that played a big role into the coverage of the events, because you basically had to deal with promoters. You had to deal with several promoters for several international shows. Then on the other side, you have the SCDF doing the local shows, but not paying attention to the local media. So therefore, they do their own marketing. And for some reason, people think everything is still only social media, only Facebook, only YouTube. And I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because I'm on both platforms, but I'm still on traditional television. I'm still on traditional radio, because at the end of the day, not everybody gets their information from social media.
Exactly.
You understand? So
exactly.
If we're going back to basic, and if you were going back to the culture, include the media also into that aspect.
We play a big part. We can play a big part in it. Huh?
Yeah, and they also had hired a whole media media team that was supposed to do so much and feature the culture aspects.
Did they? They didn't do squat.
They could have done better. Let me put it like that, Valerie.
Okay. Let's talk about, while we're on the topic, let's talk about SCDF.
Yeah, SCDF.
Let's talk about SCDF. We already covered that they were supposed to go back to basics. It's the first year that Mr. Eduardo Rajuki was there. I also heard that he was on one of the other radio stations or radio programs, and even he had to admit that it wasn't what he was.
Well, he's been involved in Carnival for a long time.
Yes, but not as
the head. And I think maybe he had to get his footing. That's one. I think he had expect that many things would have been done, but
by others.
But it fell a bit short because
he didn't delegate enough.
Yeah, and it was noticeable that the amount of youngsters that were part of the SCDF this year, the volunteers, it was noticeable, because you can imagine, Valerie, you have a jump up and you have 16, 17, 18-year-olds guiding, trucks and telling people what to do and so on as SCDF members. Not saying that it's not a good thing, because it's good to volunteer and start early, because they all started early, but you did notice the not too many adults were part of the SCDF, and you could see that they were short staff, and not taken away from the hard work that the volunteers do, but more could have been done as far as supervision is concerned, and I guess that's where the lack of certain capacity for many of the events that SCDF hosted took place. It's a pity, because we want new blood, we want changes, we want some innovations to take place for Carnival, but you have the same old stalwarts in SCDF that continue to keep a hold on certain aspects, and that is what makes it scary.
Let's talk about the lack of local music. There wasn't that much local music, from what I understand.
Which is strange, because we have so much, Valerie. I have at least 40 to 50 local videos from local artists, several local artists from St. Martin. And even if they didn't release too much this year, last year and the year before and the year before, they had multiple music that came out from Soca Rumble, that came out from The Groove, that came out from, different, during the year. So I did not understand why the only thing you could have heard this year was some very vulgar songs from...
I keep hearing about this song.
Yes, and it's a song from Dominica.
From Dominica. The guy lives in Dominica.
Yeah, Suki, that's his name.
Suki, right?
Yeah.
And it was banned in Dominica, but he was allowed to play it here with all the rawness and all the vulgarity
for the parade especially, and that was the hurtful part, because you're seeing little kids on the side, and you're hearing...
they knew the words.
They knew the words, and they were screaming it and dancing it, and it was as far as the supervision as to that aspect, They could have done better, and they should have been able. I remember there was a year for Carnival where SCDF got a lot of slack for not allowing foreign bands to perform for Juve. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And people were outraged. Oh my God, how will Juve be the same without a small axe, or without onion, or without WCK?
It's our carnival.
But guess what?
They pulled it off, right?
They pulled it off
Thank
up
you.
until this day. We have only local trucks and bands. But now we've moved from the live band aspect to DJs.
Yeah.
And the DJs, instead of playing the local songs that we have, they play these recent international.
Andrew, why is it that every year, I have nothing against her, okay? She can come here every year and perform if she wants to. But why is it every year we have to hear Destra in the
Leave my queen of Bacchanal alone.
Why
because she has a house in St. Martin and she's a resident. No. I understand exactly what you mean. And if it's not the night of the hit makers, it's either Bacchanal Sunday or some.
I don't mind that.
We're on the French side.
I don't mind that. But why in the parade? Why in our grand parade when we could be playing our own local music?
Yeah. It's just.
We have the cats. We have the
you going
what's
back?
Other one? Yeah.
You going back? You got your X-ray. You got your Bobo. You got your fish. You got your Timo.
I'm talking about for the 50th anniversary, and I will always talk about this. Destra was playing when we could have played homage. We could have paid homage to all those who went before it, the Tony Tewitts, the Cats, the Gregs.
Yeah.
Why didn't we pay homage to them?
I have no idea.
Then this year again, I like the song, but I don't want to hear it in our grand parade every single year. It's like a staple.
It's not a staple, but they make it a staple, and I think that the DJs should do better. And there was criticized heavily on social media because, again, we have artists and songs for days, for months, for weeks that we can play. And I'm talking about
And we could have played the Road March over and over and over again because it won, right?
Yes, we have many songs. And I know many DJs, many old-time DJs also that can go with strictly local music for hours. So it's if it's never been a problem, ever since we've banned this whole foreign bands coming on our Juve, it shouldn't be a problem for the parade. It shouldn't be a problem.
So no, okay. Maybe we have to talk about the troops, right?
Oh.
You know we have to talk about the troops, right?
Well, it depends on what you mean, because I already
tell you.
You know
exactly what I mean. What was up with that? What was up with the costumes? This, I think, was 1 or 2 particular troops. And I know your feelings. You're a man, you don't mind seeing that, but...
The parade, you have to understand that the costume designers are going with the times, and unfortunately the times are at the stage where we've gone from, where we're very covered to where nakedness is in. And it's still in because nobody goes to the troop with the most clothes. That's just how it is, Valerie. Unfortunate, but that's just how it is. Especially the type of women that end up going to these parades. They want to be free. They want to be flexible. They want to be looking good and shiny, and as the less is more for them. And apparently that's just the generation that we're in. So it's. I know that many who've seen many carnivals before know how nice it used to be, as far as the different colors and jewels and costumes. But the less is the better, apparently, and that is how people are responding and people are signing up for the troops. That is it for the Late Night Show. Thank you so much for watching. Until tomorrow, do have a safe and pleasant one. Bye-bye.
tumble down.